Good afternoon, I'm Mai Rodriguez. This is Newsfeed on the Bilyonaryo News Channel. Inflation in the Philippines breaches the upper end of government's 2 to 4% target for the first time this year. The Consumer Price Index coming at 4.4% in July on the back of increases in utility costs, including power. Increases in food prices also drove the inflation higher for the month. As inflation shoots up, NEDA Secretary Arsenio Balisacan assures Filipinos that the government is relentlessly working to achieve its goal of food security. As for the Philippine Central Bank, it says the risk to inflation have shifted to the downside following the government's move to lower the tariff on imported rice. But the BSP also notes that higher food and transportation costs may continue to push inflation up in the coming months. The president of BDO Capital and Investment, Ed Francisco, meanwhile says given the uptick in inflation, he won't be surprised if the central bank decides to keep its rates unchanged at the upcoming August 15th meeting. A Senate hearing uncovers fake birth certificates from Davao del Sur issued to foreign nationals. The National Bureau of Investigation is looking into the fiasco and expects to file a case in 2 weeks. Agatha Gregorio reports.
Officials of the Foreign Affairs Department, the Philippine Statistics Authority, and the Philippine National Police still think government documents are reliable despite concerns over the proliferation of spurious birth certificates and passports.
From a scale to 1 to 10, how would you characterize our identification documents? O, halimbawa, DFA, passport natin.
I think it's a 9.5.
PSA, ang national ID, kamusta?
I would say it's 9, Your Honor. Birth certificate, Your Honor, the process of registration happens at the local civil registrar. So in terms of policies on how the registration should be done, I think we are a 9 on that.
But while the public hears those near-perfect scores from some officials, for National Bureau of Investigation Region 11 Director Jonathan Balite,
That should not be higher than 5, Your Honor.
that's after it was revealed at the Senate Blue Ribbon Committee hearing on Monday that just in Santa Cruz, Davao del Sur, over 1,500 certificates of live birth were irregularly issued to foreign nationals.
Sa 1,501, we noticed na 54 nito, wala pong Filipino parents ang na-indicate dun sa birth certificates.
The NBI will investigate the matter, adding they have identified one fixer who's expected to give them the necessary information to build a case. They hope to file that in 2 weeks. The controversy over birth certificates sprung after Bamban Mayor Alice Guo figured in a pogo scandal in Tarlac that eventually exposed alleged irregularities in her nationality. Guo claims being Filipino and Philippine-born, but her birth records are now being questioned. At the hearing, lawmakers discovered 2 of her siblings may also have falsified records. Senator Win Gatchalian says the birth certificates of the 2 were filed via late registration using baptismal certificates that were later revealed to be fake.
We found out na itong dalawang taong to, si Simen Lialgo and Wesley Lialgo, meron silang baptismal certificate coming from a church in Caloocan called Parokya ng San Roque. Surprisingly, they certified, nag-issue sila ng negative certification, no, na walang ganun na baptismal record, no, in their parish. I would encourage Caloocan to allow PSA to do their investigation because para makita natin yung katotohanan at saan yung defect.
Gatchalian says due to this issue on fraudulent government documents, some embassies are now requiring DNA tests among children.
Even yung mga embassies here, foreign embassies here, they're very careful kasi para lumalabas human trafficking yan, no? So they're very careful at nawala na rin yung tiwala nila sa ating birth certificate, no, system natin. So importante na talagang makahanap tayo ng solusyon dahil nakakaya para sa atin na may ganito ng mga moves ang ginagawa ng mga embassies.
Agatha Gregorio, Bilyonaryo News Channel.
The Philippines is sending 100 caregivers to South Korea. They will be the first batch to work in the East Asian nation under the Philippine government's Employment Permit System pilot project. The caregivers were directly hired by agencies accredited by the Korean Ministry of Employment and Labor. The Department of Migrant Workers says this will guarantee the workers fair benefits and treatment. The Philippines is getting U.S. assistance as it deals with 3 maritime incidents in the waters of Bataan. Members of the U.S. Coast Guard and National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration have arrived in Limay to provide their technical expertise. Philippine authorities are trying to contain an oil spill from MTKR Terra Nova, which capsized at the height of Super Typhoon Karina on July 25, while carrying 1.4 million liters of industrial fuel oil. 2 days after, another tanker, Jason Bradley, sank while MV Mirola 1 ran aground in Mariveles, Bataan, July 31. Nearly 200 members of the Philippine College of Rotary Governors expressed indignation over the cancellation of the country's hosting of their annual convention. In an open letter, the PCRG condemned what they say is a, quote, arbitrary and unreasonable actions of Rotary International President Stephanie Urchik and her fellow board members. They say this brought embarrassment and outrage to Filipinos who were looking forward to hosting the convention. It would have been the first time the Philippines will host the event in 105 years. It says the RI Board's decision withdrawing the tentative selection of Manila for the 2028 convention has dampened the enthusiasm and morale of Rotarians. The United Nations is calling for restraint in Bangladesh following the resignation of its Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina. Hasina resigned and fled the country after hundreds were killed in a crackdown on demonstrations which began as protests against preferential job quotas. The protests swelled into a movement that demanded Hasina's ouster. The UN urges calm and restraint by all sides and emphasized the importance of a peaceful, orderly, and democratic transition as Bangladesh forms an interim government.
We're watching the situation in the country very closely. We continue to call for calm and restraint and to urge all parties to respect the right to peaceful assembly and expression. We urge security forces to protect those out on the streets of Dhaka and other cities of Bangladesh.
Several explosions rang out in Kiev, Ukraine overnight, authorities say. Air defense units had intercepted incoming missiles. According to witnesses, more explosions were heard half an hour after the original blasts. Ukrainian authorities say preliminary reports show no damage or casualties from the explosions. Global markets tanked Monday as fears of a recession in the world's largest economy deepened. U.S. stocks saw their worst day in nearly 2 years as anxiety over a weak July jobs report turned into a widespread panic. The tech-heavy Nasdaq falling 3.4%, dragged by a nearly 5% slump in Apple shares. The S&P 500 also dropping 3% to 5186, while the Dow lost 2.6%. Adding to the jitters, concerns that the U.S. Federal Reserve may have waited too long to start cutting rates. Markets in Europe also suffered from the global sell-off.
Growth scare and a Fed policy scare. So in other words, we went from months and months of when's the Fed going to ease and how much are they going to ease this year and next, to one where growth is plunging and the Fed is behind the curve. So we've had a change in attitude. It's been based on some weakening data, but certainly the big report on Friday. So in our opinion, is the economy slowing? Yes. Is there any need for an emergency Fed cut? Doesn't look like it in our opinion.
Markets in Europe also suffered from the global sell-off, with London's FTSE 100 falling 2%. Let's now take a look at how major U.S. indices may open when trading resumes tonight. Manila time so far, all three are poised for a higher open. Heartbreak In Paris, as Filipino pole vaulter EJ Obiena misses the podium in the 2024 Summer Games. Obiena placed 4th overall after failing to clear the 5.95-meter mark in the men's pole vault finals, but his finish was still better than his 11th place ranking in Tokyo 2020. Sweden's Armand Duplantis retained his Olympic pole vault title. The world number 1 beat his own world record after clearing 6.25 meters to bag the gold. And those are the news this hour. I'm Mai Rodriguez. Stay tuned to Bilyonaryo News Channel for more top-of-the-hour news. Catch us on Free TV Channel 31 and also on our website, bnc.ph. Bilyonaryo News Channel, always on top. Good afternoon.